Howdy, it's John, and you're tuned into the April edition of Voice of the Mesh, the podcast where we untangle everything Meshtastic. On the docket this month, a critical CVE that makes upgrading to the latest firmware a must-do. Why ditching long fast for snappier presets can free up precious airtime. And a wave of new hardware from Heltec's battery bank to Seed's solar-powered P1 Pro with built-in GPS. All of the links live in your show notes, video description, or on our website. So let's tune up the radios and dive in. First, in headline news, we have that critical vulnerability that I mentioned. It is ranked 9.4 out of 10. So this is a very critical security issue. And it is titled, Incorrect Handling of Malformed Packets Leads to Controlled Buffer Overflow. And for the technical of you out there, this vulnerability does allow for the possibility of a remote code execution. So it is very dangerous. For you non-technical users, the short version is that anyone on the same channel as you can send you bad data. And in the best case scenario, that crashes your radio. And at the worst case scenario, it could possibly allow them to execute malicious code on your phone. I don't think we've heard of any cases of that happening. We're not entirely sure if that is possible, but that is the level of criticality that we're talking about. And I'm going to quote the bug report here. This attack does not require authentication or user interaction. Again, you don't have to click anything as long as your radio is on and receiving from a public mesh. Someone can send bad data that could do bad things to your radio. Again, either crash it or potentially execute malicious code. You will want to upgrade to at least 2.6.2. You might as well upgrade to the latest beta, whatever's out by the time you listen to this. But all previous versions of the firmware below 2.6.2 are impacted by this vulnerability. It's really important that if you take nothing away from this podcast, please upgrade your firmware. Moving away from the doom and gloom, there was a Meshtastic blog post titled, Is Long Fast Holding Back Your Mesh? Better LoRa Presets for Bigger Meshtastic Networks. Let's look at the highlight problem. Long fast, which is the default setting for all Meshtastic radios, is slow. A maximum length message is about 230 characters, and sending that on long fast, which is 1 kilobit per second, takes about 2 seconds to send. Each speed preset roughly doubles the speed. Here in the San Francisco Bay Area mesh, we utilize medium slow, which is twice as fast as long fast, and it operates at 2 kilobits per second. Now that message only takes 1 second to send. If you jump up a couple more notches to something like short fast, which the Puget Mesh is testing this month, which is May 2025, short fast operates at 10 kilobits per second. Now that same lengthy message that took 2 seconds to send on long fast takes under a quarter of a second to send. If you're listening to this in May 2025 and you're in Western Washington, you should join the Puget Mesh short fast test. With that problem being said, why is faster better? The longer time your radio spends on the air, the more chance there is for something to go wrong. That might be interference, it might be collisions with other radios that are sending data as well, or your message may simply be incomplete or fragmented. Especially if you are in a situation where you are moving, whether your radio is in hand and you're just walking around, or you're in a car, think about where your radio is and what's around you for 2 full seconds, 1001, 1002. You could pass in front of something, something could pass in front of you, and your message gets cut off halfway. If that message now takes a quarter of a second, there's a lot less of a chance that something is going to interfere with that message. Of course, while you are sending your message and other people around you are listening politely, no one else can talk. In a bigger mesh, that airtime is a critical resource that must be protected. You just have to look at the UK and their problems, which are exacerbated by in their radio usage. A lot of the Meshtastic changes recently that have slipped into the firmware quietly have helped remove things that are taking up more airtime because airtime is critical in these larger meshes. And also remember that when we're talking about message speed, it's not just text messages. There's all the other background data that's being sent, whether it's the telemetry of environmental data or location information or simply node info packets, and all the other radios resending it. Your 2-second message, which might need to be resent a few times to be seen by another radio, could take 2, 4, 6 seconds to send, and then someone else has to send it out with another 2 seconds. You can see how very quickly just a few hops, one message could take 10 or 15 or 20 seconds to be broadcast across a larger mesh. I'm not going to read the entire blog entry. If you're in a community mesh, you really should sit down and read this. The blog entry does cover some real-world examples, which includes more details from the San Francisco Bay Area on medium slow, along with a New Zealand mesh user group that is operating on short fast. All right, and now from the headline news, we go off to the hardware. And it actually starts with something that came out last month, but I missed it, which is the Rak Wireless Wiz Mesh Wi-Fi Gateway. And unlike all other Rak Wiz blocks that you've seen in every other Rak Wireless-based node, which is NRF52 based, in order to be Wi-Fi, because NRF52 does not support Wi-Fi, the Rak 11200 core module that is in this Wiz Mesh Wi-Fi Gateway is ESP32 based. It's going to chew up a little bit more battery, but again, this is designed for somewhere where you already have Wi-Fi to be a gateway, so why would you use it on solar? It does include a waterproof case, though that case does not have any sort of solar. Being ESP32 based, it's obviously not designed to be battery operated. At $70, it's a pretty good deal if you need something quick and easy to be your uplink to MQTT or other Wi-Fi based MQTT. This is a great quick option for that. Moving along to what is probably going to be the node I am most looking forward to playing with in the hopefully near future is the Heltec Mesh Pocket, which is a Qi 2 power bank node supporting up to 15 watts of wireless charging and also being able to charge via USB-C. So yes, it's a power bank that also includes a Meshtastic radio. It comes in 5 or 10,000 milliamp hour sizes. It has an e-ink display, an NRF and SX1262 chip. It's very standard stuff. And while it's not documented and I haven't seen any reviews, I would have to guess that it's probably based around the similar concept as their T114. There is an integrated antenna. Unfortunately, it does not look like there's any sort of external antenna hookups. And there is no GPS either. But again, this is a power bank. It's designed clearly to be used with a phone. The one oddity is while it has USB-C, I think those are just used for wired connectivity to the battery, charging and discharging the battery bank, because it also has pogo pins for quote-unquote firmware. I have to be honest, I saw a prototype picture of this node at least 6 months ago, maybe longer, and I have been excitedly waiting for its release because for a very long time, my everyday carry was a T-Echo with a MagSafe ring glued to the back so that I could slap it to the back of my phone and have an easy way to carry both the radio and my phone. This is obviously, in a little power bank form factor, a much better option than what I have done previously. In something slightly different, we have I'll call it a community project, the Hermes. It is titled as an affordable and flexible external solar node enclosure. It's a flexible 3D printed case. That's the long and short of it. You have the options for SMA and N-type antennas. There's a bunch of different options around how you mount it, be it to poles or walls or other things, and it supports up to 4 18650 batteries. Now, for $67 USD, it's a little bit pricey for a case, especially since you must provide your own Rak Wiz block batteries and solar panel. But if you're looking for something that's super flexible and supports different antenna types, this may be a very good option. Another one in the line of solar nodes, actually last month we talked about the Rak Wireless Wiz Mesh Solar Repeater, and this month is the Solar Repeater Mini. It looks to me very similar to the previous Rak Wireless enclosure, which had a solar panel on the enclosure, Just this node is basically that enclosure pre-built with a whiz block and a 3200 milliamp hour battery. It's nothing new or earth-shattering, but at $100, it's a good deal for someone who just needs a small solar node that's already done, IP65 case, can just take it outside, slap it up, and be ready to go. Rockland lists this as targeted towards portable and quick deploy use cases, as opposed to the full repeater, which is targeted towards more long-term, serious infrastructure usage. And finally, in new hardware for this month, we have yet another solar node. It's the Seed Studio SenseCap Solar Node P1 and P1 Pro. Both of these variations are based on their tiny Xiao NRF52 controller, and the Pro edition includes GPS and 13,000 milliamp hours of battery, which is super nice. Seed says that the battery alone should run the unit for 2 months, which makes sense because on an NRF52, it does not take that much power. I think this is the first solar node I have run across that includes GPS. Typically, that's an option that is cut in the name of battery savings, which makes a lot of sense. It's also something that you don't necessarily need for an infrastructure node, but I really like that it is an option that Seed has and includes on the Pro model. You can always turn off the GPS, but being able to get a reliable time signal and keep it for your critical infrastructure is very handy. To be clear, this node does ship with a 5-watt solar panel. The base model is $70 and does not include GPS or batteries. The Pro is $90 and it does include that GPS and battery. Either way, this is a super excellent price. I just said that the $100 Rak Wireless Repeater Mini was a good deal at $100, but Seed is doing even better because you have a lot of battery and a lot of solar panel and GPS for even less money. Obviously, with a 5-watt solar panel, or maybe not obviously to some people, but that solar panel is going to be decently sized. It's not going to be something that you hide somewhere. If you are looking for a stealthy deployment, the Repeater Mini is still your better bet between these two. But if you're looking for an infrastructure node that is not expensive, but will run even in the dark winters for many months in the Northern Territories, the P1 Pro looks like a great option. Oh, and as a cherry on top, it includes a Grove port, so you can plug in modular sensors like temperature and whatnot. Basically anything that you might need to add on to it. And finally today, we move on to the interesting findings from the social media. First and foremost, this podcast is being recorded on Saturday, May 3rd. The biggest thing in Meshtastic news right now is the recent power outages of Portugal, Spain, and France. And if you were under a rock, basically the entire countries of Portugal and Spain, as far as I understand it, lost power. The national grids went out, and I think parts of France. This is clearly a big deal and a big issue for a lot of people. Unfortunately, it seemed like it wasn't too serious and that power was restored fairly quickly, all things considered. But unfortunately, when all of the power is out, the cell service goes with it fairly quickly. There are a number of posts about users, including some people visiting and staying in Airbnbs, being able to pass around news and get some idea of what's going on and real-time reports of power restoration. This is yet another great example of sometimes, even if you are somewhere where you have great cell service, it could go away for any sort of reason. On the next item is something I found in the Meshtastic Discord, which is rfindex.com. It's a kind of interesting central repository site allowing you to compare all sorts of different Meshtastic devices and antennas too. If you're curious of looking around trying to find a specific radio to fit a specific need, this might be a useful site for you to do some compare and contrast. From Reddit, we have Node on University, end quote, by Ancient Grab 1106. And it appears to be an engineering student going to university in Belgium who got approval to put Meshtastic on the university buildings. And this is just a fun little example of sometimes you just got to ask the right people and have the right purpose, and you can get things like Meshtastic deployed and be able to use it all around college. Another very interesting and unusual use is I renovated an old shopping mall using Meshtastic by Evening Extension 69 on Reddit. And basically, this user highlights that they took on the renovation of a approximately 30 or so year old shopping mall that was in desperate need of smart controls and did not have the money for major infrastructure changes. In a case of smartifying a house, you can use Zigbee or Z-Wave. Unfortunately, that does not work in a very large scale environment. And even things like 4G service was not reliable. LoRaWAN didn't have the coverage. This user stumbled across Meshtastic and used it as a way to pass around control data to various systems, collecting data and allowing a Raspberry Pi to control the entire network and send data. And they basically implemented their own data packet to control various industrial systems. And it's a great use case for Meshtastic. It's something that the system can do, and hopefully the author of this gets the reliability they need out of it. And for those of you living in a cold area, there is an article titled Cold Weather Charging of Lithium-Ion Batteries, Real-World Lessons from the Meshtastic Community. And it was originally posted on Reddit by Kbox Labs, and it looks to be from the Southern Alberta Mesh in Canada. And basically, this is a very detailed article about their uses of batteries, especially lithium-ion batteries, down to -40 degrees. And before you ask whether that's Celsius or Fahrenheit, the answer is yes. And if you don't get that joke, look it up. They do recommend lithium titanium oxide batteries for mission-critical deployments, but noted that they basically didn't have any major problems with lithium-ion batteries, in large part due to the fact that there is so low drain and such low charging need. If you're living in a cold climate somewhere fairly north, this is probably an interesting read to you. Where I am, my biggest problem is, do I want to put lithium-ion batteries in a box that will hit 130 degrees Fahrenheit easily in the summer? Different problems for different people. And linked from a number of places, which I lost track of, was an article on CNX Software about a solar-powered LLM over Meshtastic, and includes a GitHub repository about how you can connect a large language model, aka AI, to Meshtastic and run it over a solar setup. You probably need a reasonably large size solar setup with a decent sized panel and a lot of battery to do that, because even at a small LLM connected to an ESP32, it's going to be fairly battery hungry. I thought that this was fun and interesting. The article talks about how this could provide life-saving instructions during disasters and emergencies. But I'm going to be honest, any LLM that can fit on a solar node, which is using a model of 500 million parameters, which is just absolutely tiny, I don't know if I would trust that with getting life-saving information. You're probably better off having some sort of automated, here is basics that you need to know, because that tiny LLM is not going to provide you good medical or life-saving information unless it's extremely well programmed. Fun, cool, yes, but please do not use ChatGPT for life-saving instructions. That's just, never trust AI like that right now. Another item from the Meshtastic Discord is the Meshtastic Prometheus Exporter. It collects just an absolute ton of metrics from an MQTT server and dumps them into Prometheus. And Prometheus is a metrics system that's popular with Kubernetes, Crowd, and open source stuff. If Prometheus means nothing to you, then don't worry about this. It's extremely complicated. But if you are someone who loves the data and analytics and running a big mesh, this is probably interesting. I've seen that the Ukraine mesh runs something like this for the public portions of their mesh. You can, of course, once you dump it into Prometheus, there are Grafana dashboards, so you can actually have real-time dashboards of your mesh's health, as it were. As we wind down here, I have two last entries, which are more just fun informational about local groups. Dave AI6VX gave a presentation for the Ventura County Amateur Radio Club. There is a linked PDF in the show notes about the presentation he gave. It's a standard intro. What is Meshtastic? Who uses it? How it works, etc. I love to call these out as if you are looking to present to other amateur radio groups, here is a PDF presentation already done, made by someone else. There's a bunch of these floating around. I've done some and posted them from the Bay Area. I know other people in the Bay Area have done the same. I've talked about some other ones in the past. Just look around and you will find more of these presentations. It allows us to spread the word on a more personal level because amateur radio clubs love to have these sort of things. They love to learn about new technology. And similarly, was finding a bunch of information from the Tulsa Meshtastic Working Group. They have calls on a regular basis that include Zoom recordings. If you're interested in how a working group goes about setting up Meshtastic in a more formal manner, and it even seems like they might have some official City of Tulsa approved nodes, this is a little Google group and Zoom recordings that might be worth a listen. Thanks for getting all the way to the end of this April episode of Voice of the Mesh. A quick reminder, if you haven't already, please patch your node's firmware to at least 2.6.2 or newer to close that critical CVE. That is the most important thing to take away today. Update your firmwares if you haven't already. Got news, hacks, or shoutouts? Drop a comment on YouTube, tag me on Blue Sky, ping me in Meshtastic Discord. Anything mesh related is fair game. While you're there, hit subscribe and leave a rating so that other mesh heads can find us. Until next month, keep the packets flying.